The agenda this week studied up on the province's post-secondary tuition cuts. We assessed proposals to rejuvenate Ontario Place and considered the potential of artificial intelligence to assist with mental health care. The agenda's week in review begins with some mayoral perspective on realigning municipal governance. When there's two levels of government, I'm not sure everybody knows what everybody does. On the one hand, Peel Region has its responsibilities, and on the other hand, Mississauga,
Correct.
the city, has its.
Correct.
What's the difference? Who does what?
So let me say that I don't think two levels of government can be as efficient as one level of government, and I think there will always be more efficiencies that could be found, savings, and that's sort of in our corporate DNA at the City of Mississauga. And in fact, I told the Premier, we're their poster child on savings and efficiencies and cutting red tape, because we're great at that. We've saved $55 million over the past 10 years. That's what we do. There is duplication, so there has to be cost savings. So when you look at primarily, it's the planning department. There are two planning departments. The municipality of Caledon uses primarily the regional planning department. We have our own, so that's duplication. Sort of legal department is duplicated. Comms department is duplicated. Certainly engineering, roads, public works. We both sit both levels, both tiers, exercise that. The clerk's office, the chair's office, the CAO.
Okay, what about policing? Policing is done by the region?
Well, it's shared cost. So the City of Brampton and the City of Mississauga share the costs of Peel Regional Police. At Caledon, they have OPP.
How about fire?
Fire is at the City of Mississauga. We pay for our firefighters. Now, what could change is sort of what could be utility-based, like our electricity is of course, a shared cost. It's a utility. So wastewater, water, that could be utility-based.
Does everybody in Halton understand who does what?
They certainly do. Every time there's a snowstorm, they know which level of government does that, and that's municipality.
So Burlington gets the plows out.
We get the plows out. When it's your garbage, though, on Monday, so when we have a snowstorm and garbage pickup, that's the region. And so in Halton Region, I think that the services that they provide at that level, and certainly policing would be one, there are efficiencies to be had by grouping municipalities together and spreading those costs over a broader range of municipalities. I think we could start to look at sharing transit service. Those things that don't have municipal boundaries. Planning does, so I think that has to stay at the local level, but transit, affordable housing, water and wastewater, transportation, those things that don't stop at the border, and our residents certainly don't stop at the border, we get efficiencies by working with the region. But I don't want to port everything up to the regional level, because as soon as you do that, you lose connection with your local community.
But doesn't the region do planning? Because our region does planning.
They do some. They do it at a regional level, and you know, it's not at the ground level. They're not looking at our individual applications other than as a commenting agency. So for the most part, other than the natural heritage system, for example, which crosses municipalities, looking at Greenbelt, which we know is, you know, it's protected now, but we have to be vigilant to make sure,
hope to keep it that way.
We will keep it that way. We just passed a unanimous resolution in Burlington, notwithstanding the fact that you know, Schedule 10 is out of Bill 66 for now. We will
Schedule 10 out of Bill 66. We're getting in the weeds here. We're getting in the weeds.
The Greenbelt's protected for now, but we need to be vigilant.
Do the people in Aurora understand what York Region does for them and what the town of Aurora does for them?
I think sometimes it's a bit confusing for some of the residents, but as mentioned, you know, there's a lot of things that I think from a York Region perspective that we need to look at. One that I've been big on is creating a regional fire service. I think that if you upload that to the region, you will find some efficiencies in that system. But as Marianne had mentioned, you know, planning, absolutely not. That should be at the local level. You know, our region basically just puts out a memo and says that you know, whether they approve with the application or they disagree with it, or you know, they have no comment. And at the end of the day, that's what we get on the local level. But you know, planning should be left to the local level. That's what we fought for so many times. And I don't want to get into the weeds, but through the OMB and through LPAC coming through, that was a big fight for that. And so we deserve that on the local level. But I think when you speak about what do residents understand as far as what's regional, what's local. I mean, I have an issue with the grass all the time. The region comes in, they cut half the grass, and they leave the other half because that's the municipal level.
Come on, seriously?
Yes. Oh, and so I'm actually going to have a big fight, I guess a big fight at the regional level, and expect that either the local municipal councils take control of that and cut all the grass, or the region cuts all the grass.
Is there a difference between regional grass and local grass?
Well, I hope there isn't. I mean, it all looks the same to me.
Let's also, and Nord, let me get you on this, it's 10% next year. Yeah. Universities were expecting to be able to raise their tuitions at least 3% next year. So that 10 is now suddenly 13. It's a freeze in the following year, when they might have wanted to increase their tuitions another 3%. So 13 plus 3 is now 16% less revenue 2 years from now than what universities had planned. I want to know how they're going to eat that 16%. The minister said, I'm sure they'll just get innovative and figure it out. What do you think is going to happen?
Well, a lot of our institutions are going to have to make really difficult changes to the way that they operate. That could mean resulting in cuts to faculty, which will impact the student-faculty ratio in our classrooms, meaning that the quality of education for students will decrease. That could look like service cuts. Our institutions are old institutions with new responsibilities related to sexual violence, mental health, international student support, and so much more. We may see a decrease in the supports there, which again, at the end of the day, students get the short end of the stick. So a lot of these institutions are going to have to find a way to make up that money and try to still provide services and supports to students at the same level that they have been, and hopefully even better. But I think that they're going to have to, go back to the drawing board and really imagine how things are going to change.
I can imagine. Well, you tell me, has it happened yet that the university administration has come to you as the faculty association person at Nipissing and said, okay, this means you're not getting a raise for a long time. This means we're going to have to lay off a bunch of probably contract professors and instructors and, maybe a few other things as well. And sorry, but that's the way it is. And you're going to say what?
Well, I think certainly Nipissing is looking at a bigger hit from its budget at my university. We're already very close to the bone. And I think one of the things that I'm concerned about is that it's not like we walked into this cut with giant bags of money stashed away in our pockets. Universities have been underfunded for over a decade. There's been no increase for over 10 years to public funding of institutions, hence the over-reliance or increasing reliance on tuition. So we've already seen the consequences of budget cuts. The fact is that across Ontario, and especially outside the GTA, universities have been laboring under funding cuts for years, and that has meant increasing class sizes. We have the largest faculty to student ratio in the country, 31-1. The Canadian average is 22-1. That's huge. We spend the least amount of money per student for our university education.
It's been that way for 40 years. I got news for you. Even in the sainted Bill Davis days, Ontario was 10th out of 10 in per student allocation from the province of Ontario. It's just always been that way. I'm not making this up. Hang on. Where is that? Graphic, there we go. Graphic number 2. Look at the province of Ontario right in the middle there. Yes, each province, what it spends on post-secondary students in Ontario is, and as far as I know, has been for at least half a century, 10th out of 10 when it comes to provincial per-student funding. Okay, Alex, why?
I think we actually briefly climbed up into 9th under McGuinty, but it was pretty short-lived. I think that, so first of all, because we have higher tuition fees, in effect, it's not that the institutions have less dollars per student, it's that they're getting less from government. So it does kind of balance out a little bit. It's not that Ontario students are having fewer funds spent, it's not that the professors have less money to spend per student.
But less from the government.
That's right, it's less from the government. So that's one thing. The second thing is, on average, institutions in Ontario are huge, and there are some economies of scale. Right, so it's a little bit different in provinces like, in the Atlantic provinces where, your biggest institution is 10 or 15,000 and most of your institutions are 3,000, 4,000. Those are expensive universities to run.
Right.
The difference here is, the average institution in Ontario is huge, and there are some benefits of scale. And so they can deliver similar kinds of services to students with a little less money.
Both the minister responsible for this now, Michael Tobolo, and Jim Janu, who is the new head of Ontario Place, the new board chair, they have used words like disgraceful or shameful to describe the current condition of Ontario Place. Would you share that view?
Well, I've had an opportunity to spend a lot of time at Ontario Place just by virtue of our close proximity. And it is clear that the government has not been able to invest in the infrastructure. And so there is some decline in the site. However, I don't think that that is a reason to write off the entire site. I think that there are things that can be done quite easily and quickly to improve the experience and really try to get the Ontario Place site back up to what it once was.
Joe, disgraceful and shameful in your view?
Well, I think we need to dispel some untruths here, or mistruths. Last year, Ontario Place had 1.4 million visitors. So Trillium Park, which Suzanne talked about, that was a $30 million investment by the previous government to create Trillium Park. The Cinesphere, it's been completely revitalized. In fact, the producer of your show here saw Purple Rain there this past Friday night. And so I have to tell you, this notion that Ontario Place is disgraceful and disgusting, 1.4 million Ontarians, about the same number of people who go to the CN Tower every year, might disagree. Now, that doesn't mean it's not perfect and set up for an upgrade and a revitalization. And so then it's a question of what's your vision? And so for those of us who believe in building an Ontario Place for all Ontarians, the vision has to start with accessibility and the waterfront. You want to build a dynamic waterfront destination. But if your interest here is simply leasing it off to the highest bidder, which I think the expressions of interest might result in, that's where we could end up seeing something truly disgraceful, like a mega mall or a casino or something of that sort.
Just humor me for a second.
Sure.
What would be so horrible about putting a casino there?
Well, here's the thing about a casino is 4 walls. It's a box. You can put it anywhere. Great cities around the world don't have casinos on their waterfront. In fact, what a casino does, it hemorrhages jobs from the local area. It's insular. It brings people in to look inward instead of outward. On the heart of the waterfront, you want people experiencing the waterfront. But most of all, casinos drive most of their economic benefit from what we call problematic gamblers, people who have gambling addictions. And the way you build a great economy is not off the backs of the most vulnerable. And that's what a casino does.
Okay, humor me some more here. Sev, the casino would not take up all 155 hectares, acres. I don't know what that is in hectares, but 155 acres, it would not cover the whole site. Presumably, it would be one small part of it. Why? I mean, virtually every single person I talk to, maybe save an exception of the Premier, says a casino's a terrible idea. Why is it a terrible idea?
Well, I am not the gambling type, Steve. So for me, this is not how I want to spend my pastimes. And I think that's what a lot of folks are reacting to when they say, do we want a casino down at Ontario Place? There is such a unique geography to this place. I mean, when Vegas was created, it was a way to make usefulness out of the desert, right? That makes sense to put something like a bunch of casinos down there. But this new Trillium Park, which has 260-degree panoramic views of the city, unlike any other spot in it, is it remarkable. Whether there is a benefit to gaming can be a question of its own right. Whether that's the site for gaming is something entirely different. There's no mistaking that the gaming industry brings in a ton of money to the provincial coffers. Last year, about $7.5 billion. So I certainly understand that a government that's focused on the bottom line wants to look at opportunities to bring in new revenue. But is this the place to do it? And is this the way to use that land? Because you really get to kick this can once every 100 years at best. Is this really what we want to do? Let's be really smart about it.
In one study using the Facebook data of 638 participants, apparently they were able to predict future depression diagnoses as much as 3 months before it appeared in their medical records as a diagnosed condition. Again, David, how can social media be used to predict depression?
This is early data, so we're going to take it with a grain of salt. But look, you and I interact with this world so differently than we would have 10 years ago, 20 years ago, and that generates data. So my posts on Twitter, pardon me, my posts on Facebook, my tweets on Twitter, maybe that's showing early signs of an emerging illness. And maybe we can gather that information which, by the way, would be pretty invisible to providers like myself. So our doctors and nurses work hard, but we don't go through every tweet of every single patient. Maybe we could find that information and harness it with AI and come back with a diagnosis long before a person had even sat in his psychiatrist's office.
Let me do a quick follow-up. Sure. GPS. Can you use GPS for the same way?
I had a patient a few years ago, and a sign that he was getting ill was that his evening walks changed. He had bipolar affective disorder, and he was entering into a manic episode. He walked later at night, walked into unfamiliar areas. So his daughter, who's really on the ball, would give me a phone call. I'd have no other way of knowing. But you know, his smartphone knew there was a change in his pattern because the smartphone has a GPS. Maybe in the future we can use that, and there are experiments like in Michigan with Priory, which is an app that looks at your GPS and looks for signs of emerging illness. It's exciting, but early.
Early days. Aaron, what sort of data or linguistic clues is Polly looking at to help in discovering more on mental health?
Well, the reason there's so much promise for mental health in social data is because there's so much of it. And statistics works best when you have lots and lots of data. So if you're looking at one patient, 10 patients, it's hard to find patterns and to find ways of detecting these things. But online, we have trillions of data points. So that's the first thing I want to say. What Polly does, she's looking not just at the individual. Here's the other great thing about social media. We can go back and look at the history of what people have said. So if we start to detect in 2019 that somebody is having mental health problems, maybe because their patterns have changed. Now, patterns changing could be a sign, but it could also just be, I mean, anybody who's had an adolescent knows that their sleeping patterns change. That could be a sign of problems, but it could also just be a healthy adolescent. Being able to go back then and say, are there other comorbid signs? Do we see signs of substance abuse? Is there a history of child abuse in this person's history? Has a parent been laid off work? Or in the case of an older person, has there been a factory closing down? These types of things, together with the signs that we see at the individual level, because if we were just to chase around individuals, we'd have a high false positive rate. But when we can go back and see that history as well, that's what gives us the ability to really pinpoint things in a way that we weren't able to before.
We all know what a robot is, but you've developed something called a wobot. Where did the idea of a wobot come from?
Well, actually, it just came from, I was at Stanford for many years, for almost 10 years, we were designing treatments and, evaluating them in NIH-funded treatment trials and conventional kind of research. And just the realization that actually the mental health problem all around us was getting out of control in a very quickly. And the need to make something that was efficacious, but also highly engaging in the population, to encourage people to really engage with mental health practices every single day. So wobot came from that endeavor.
How effective is it at doing what it purports to do?
Well, we actually conducted a randomized controlled trial at Stanford and demonstrated that wobot could significantly and meaningfully reduce symptoms of depression in just 2 weeks, actually, which is fairly quick.
And that is the Agenda's Week in Review for this Friday, February 1st, 2019. You can see all of those conversations in their entirety at tvo.org, on our YouTube channel at youtube.com/theagenda, and on our Twitter feed. That's twitter.com/theagenda.
The Agenda with Steve Bacon is brought to you by the Chartered Professional Accountants of Ontario, helping businesses stay on the right side of change with strategic thinking, insightful decisions, and business leadership. Are you on the right side of change? Ask an Ontario CPA.